to a contest. It's been a while, so nice to see you all back here. Let's see. First, some kind of admin things around this. Maybe I should explain for those who hasn't been here before. So contest is a forum for discussing quality things, usually within the context of software development. And yeah, in order for us to have contest, we need contest. If you have any presentation you want to do, or that you want to listen to, or any workshop you want to do or listen to, or just a topic you want to discuss, then please contact me. Yeah, my name is Andreas Seiderholm. You can find me on LinkedIn or at Tesla Slack, or just mail me at andreas.seiderholm@House of Test. And that brings us to House of Test. That would be perfect. Okay, now we had this rolling here before. So House of Test is tonight's sponsor, and it's a consultant firm focusing on quality. So if you need a consultant that knows quality, then please contact us. We have our perfect salesman here. You can contact them. Yes, I think that was this. Yep, and that leads us into tonight's topic, Nudging the Quality by Martin Pihl. And without further ado, Martin.
Is it on? Yes? Nice. All right. Thank you, Andreas, and welcome. Like Andreas said, my name is Martin Pihl, and I'm here today to give a talk called Nudging the Quality. So let's just get started. Up. Up. Better? Yes? Oh, nice. All right. Yes. A while ago, I don't know if you noticed, we had a pandemic. Not just us, basically around the world, which I guess is what pandemic means. And all of the different countries and governments decided to handle that in different ways. Sweden kind of stood out in that, in how we handled it. I won't go into if it was good or bad or the politics of it, but when there was written a lot of articles and opinions about this, one term that I noticed came up in the early stages to try to understand why the government and the authorities made the efforts they did was a term called nudge theory, which I had never come across before. I bought a book that explains this. This is a book written by two economic professors about, I think it's 10, 15 years ago. It's a socio-economic theory. And while I was reading it, I noticed that a lot of the things that they talk about, a lot of the nudges you can do, kind of correlate to how I want to work as a tester and a quality professional. So that is what I will try to weave together in this talk. And who am I then to stand here and talk about the pandemic? Like I said, Martin Pihl. I'm a father of two lovely boys. I'm a husband of a wonderful wife, Malmöit. I've lived here basically all my life, apart from a short stint in Lund when I studied there. I've been working around 15 years in the software development area, mostly with quality and testing. I've dabbled in other stuff, but always returned to testing. At the moment, I work as the head of QA at Memo, who help fans get video greetings from their idols, from celebrities. And that's me. I much prefer to have a dialogue more than a monologue when I do these kinds of talks. So if there are any questions or you disagree with anything, boos, cheers, just shout them out, and we'll tackle them as we go along. And we perhaps have some YouTube comments, apparently, while we go along. So let's see. All right, so nudge theory. What it is based on is the concept that there are humans and there are economic humans. The economic humans is a separate species called human economicus, they refer to it. And the idea is that an economic human has all the information they need and makes all the right choices at the right time. While humans don't always do that. We don't have all the information we need. We don't make all the right choices. For instance, this is from a lottery ticket, Tris lottery ticket. I don't know if anyone has anyone here, show of hands, who has ever bought a Tris lottery ticket? Yeah. This is from my lottery tickets. I've also bought this. Now this shows all of the things you can win, and there's a lot of money you can win. It seems like they specify that you have a winning percentage of 49%. But I would say that me, at least, feel that when I buy a lottery ticket, I want to win big. And the question is, how much is big? But let's postulate that you want to win 10,000 kronor and above. And they have 6 million lottery tickets. So there are only 214 tickets where you can win over 10,000 kronor, which is a very, very small percentage. So this kind of shows how an economic human would look at these odds and figure there's no point in me buying a lottery ticket. A human would see, I can win 10,000, I can win 2.5 million, and buy a lottery ticket. So that is kind of the basis of this theory. And what they propose is, how can we make humans take choices like an economic human? And their proposal is to use nudges. And they characterize nudges as any aspect of the choice architecture that alters people's behavior in a predictable way without forbidding any options or significantly changing their economic incentives. A lot of words. The two authors are American, so that's kind of what they do. But I mean, in a way, it's a slight push. It can't be that you forbid anything or you give a large incentive of it. You have to have small pushes in order to persuade a human to make the correct choice. And they draw up 6 different kinds of nudges. There's incentives, understand mappings, defaults, give feedback, expect error, and structure complex choices. I'm going to go through each of these and explain them deeper, and also tie them into how they can be used in the software development field, in the quality area, and places I've seen these kind of nudges used while I've been working. Now, they wanted to have a mnemonic device to be able to understand, so that's why they've capitalized the N, so it becomes nudges. And I should start with incentives here, but I find that nudge very boring. So I'll leave it to the end, and we'll see if we get to it. So let's start with understand mappings. Understand mappings is from the concept that choices are hard. It's very hard to make a choice. I know myself, it's one of the hardest things I do is have to make a choice. I've recently been on a job hunt, and for about a week I had problems sleeping because I couldn't. It was really hard making the choice. Where do I want to work? What do I want to do with my life? So choices are hard, and the nudge that they propose is to try to make information about the different options you have, the different options you choose between, to make that information more understandable, to explain it in a way to a person. They mention a farmer's market where they went to buy apple. They wanted to make apple cider. and they had a hard time choosing how many apples they should buy. And they proposed that maybe it would be better for an apple farmer to have a sign that says you want 1 glass of cider, you have to have 3 apples, for instance. So the idea is to kind of show the options and make it easier for the human to understand the options, and therefore easier to make the right choices.
Question.
Yeah.
What was your choice of architecture for your job?
Make no choice to start with.
Yeah,
Yes, can
so
you repeat this?
absolutely. So when you were job hunting,
Yes.
and you mentioned the choice architecture, what was that? What did that consist of?
It was a poor choice architecture, I would say. I went to every type of person who wanted to talk to me about maybe working, and then I narrowed it down. So I guess that was the choice architecture. I guess I did draw down the options and make them more understandable. Well, there's a different nudge that's coming later. That's probably more of a choice architecture there. But to get back to this nudge, one thing that, a place where I noticed how you could use this nudge is, I worked in a cross-functional team where we were using Sprint or Sprint-ish, and for each sprint planning, I guess most of you, how many here have ever worked in a sprint project or a sprint-ish project? Couple? It has an element where you have a sprint planning, where you sit down and you look at what are we supposed to do the coming 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. And you talk about them, and what always came up was the question to me as a tester. How long will this take you to test? Which is really hard to answer. Time estimation is really hard. Has all of those of you who have participated in sprint plannings, have you had this question? Show of hands, how many has had this question? Yeah. And if you're being completely honest, were any of you accurate when you answered this? Exactly. It is hard. It is really hard. So what we did was that we started using Lego pieces. So we started visualizing. So each area of profession in the team got a color, designers, testers, developers, and was given a set of Lego pieces. And then you constructed each issue that you were going to do, each task. You built it together to try to form. And you only had a finite amount of Lego pieces. And this really helped us understand the problems at hand and to make better choices. We could easily see that there was no chance of us being able to deliver that many issues. So it nudged the whole choice along for us to understand the different options we had. And it helped a lot. Moving on to defaults. A default is based on the concept that people are lazy. They take the path of least resistance. Yeah, you can see this in if you look at a brand new lawn that's been constructed, and the landscape architect has paved different paths that people are going to take. It takes about a week, and then you notice these curved edges because people, if it saves them 2 steps, then they're going to take the quicker route. So in order to work with this, the nudge here is to make better defaults, to own up to the fact that people do take the easiest route. So you present them with a default that makes them make better choices. And I was once again working in a cross-functional team. It's a different place, but the problem we had was that our bug backlog was growing. It was piling up. One of the reasons it was piling up was that when bug reports came in from other teams, from customers, they weren't that great. The information was lacking a lot because they usually just fired up the bug reporting program, wrote in what happened, and sent it in. And it took a lot of time from us as QA people and testers to triage the bug, to understand the bug, to delve deep into it, and to understand if it is prioritized, right? So what we did was in this bug priority program, we changed the default prior to blocker, highest priority available. Or severity is a better word, but since we use the system that everybody hates, prio is the term. So we changed the default prior to blocker. It took a while for people to catch on, but after they had put in about 5 blockers and all alarms started ringing all over the place, they quickly learned that when they put in a bug, they have to change the prior. And this forces them to think about what the bug is about and how important is it. So this was a better default because it forced these humans to make better choices, to think about what they were reporting. So that helped us a lot. Moving on, and we have the give feedback type of nudge. Now, it's based around the concept that well-designed systems tell people when they're doing well and when they're making mistakes. So this is a nudge where, consider a golfer who's practicing their putting, but it's pitch black. So they have no idea of knowing if the ball sinks into the cup or if it shoots out into space. That is a very bad system and it's very bad feedback. So instead we want something so that we instantly can know if we're doing well or if we're doing bad. And a baby giving a thumbs up is a very good feedback, but how does this correlate to the system development space? Well, if we consider a well-designed system that tells you when you're doing well or when you're making mistakes in the software development area, what could that be? Does anyone have any ideas? No. True. True. Oh, sorry. We need the mic. Sorry.
Red hearts when filling in a personal
Yeah,
number.
the error, exactly. That's a very good nudge. One thing that is very hot and for everyone who's working with quality and testing is auto checks, automatic testing. These are systems that instantly tell you when you're checking something in and it doesn't work. And I mean, this works on all of the different levels, unit level, integration, API, on commits and builds, all of these. And when it works well, it gives you this instant feedback. It gives you this nudge to understand if you have made the right choice when you were building something. I have to cough, but I don't want to cough into the mic. But another thing which we use as a nudge to give feedback, a word to place where we built the apps. And one part of this feedback is also to help testers in giving this feedback. What we struggled with there was it was very time-consuming building the apps. The developer could have constructed or built something in a feature branch, and it took a long while to download Xcode, download Android Studio, find all different configurations that was done, build the app, and then test it and give the feedback. So what we did was we put a lot of time and effort into having a system where you could trigger builds very easily, as well as automatically, and be made available to testers. That really helped in order to give this feedback to the rest of the team. All right, and expect error. So humans make mistakes, but in order to utilize nudges to help them make better choices or to proceed is to make sure that you expect these errors and you make them as forgiving as possible. One of the most well-known or most oldest example of this is when they first designed the ATM machines. I've heard this at a number of talks before, so I'm not sure that this is news to you. Has anyone heard this before, how they designed the first ATM machines? David?
It's about getting the credit card first.
Oh, sorry. Wait.
But it's about getting the credit card either first or last. Right?
Exactly. When they first built the ATM machines, you got the money first. And that's the only thing you were there for. So you took the money and you walked off and left your card. So instead they designed it so you get the card first and then you get the money. So that is a very clear example of a nudge in this space. You expect people to make a mistake and you try to build around it. And, well, that is kind of our whole profession, to expect that people make mistakes. But one way also of nudging around this is using a crash handling system. So when something does go wrong, which it will, try to mitigate it so that it doesn't crash completely. But also a part of this is, if you expect an error to happen, if you expect something to go wrong, you also want to get as much information as possible. And this can be done through these crash handling systems. One thing that I've also experienced is where when we built an app, when we also put in a way for the user to access a screen that shows all of the relevant information, things like login, device type, OS version, all of the information that was needed to understand what happened to the app. So when an error occurred, you could take a screenshot and send this into customer support, which is a very good way of expecting error. That when it happens, you can get something good out of it, at least. And then we have structure complex choices. This is kind of similar to understand mapping, and that's it also similar to the choice architecture when I was job hunting. So when a choice set gets too large, when you have too many things to choose between, normal choice-making strategies don't really apply. Humans don't work well with a lot of stuff, basically. So what you want to do is use a type of nudge to simplify these choices. Netflix does this. They have a huge catalog of films, TV series, and if you only had a list of all of these things, it would be impossible to find anything to watch. But what they do is they call it collaborative filtering, where they utilize the data they have. They utilize data to see what you have watched before, what other people in your area has watched before, and present you with choices in order for you to make the better choice. So you watch something that you will enjoy and that they make more money out of. That's kind of why they want to do it. But it is a way of simplifying the choices from a very large choice set. Now, we had a problem at a place I was working with the bug backlog or the bug intake to decide the importance of bugs and the importance of fixes. If we had a fix for a specific type of problem, was it worth missing a release date because we wanted to get this fix into the whole deploy chain? And because there was so many different choices to make of this, we started using the data we had. We wanted to correlate it with the user data and frequency of use, for instance. We had a fix for one part of the functionality, which a part of the team felt was really important, wanted to get this in and wanted to delay the release date. But what we found was that the functionality that this fix was used by 2% of our user base. So we made the decision, no, we can wait with this. We have to do more important stuff. So it's a way to structure these huge sets of data, or these huge sets of choices by using data. And that takes us to incentives, which is, it is what it says it is, which is you get an incentive if you make the right choice. I find that a little bit boring way. So instead, what I want to talk about is another thing they brought up in the book, which is the concept of social influence, which is that people do what others do. Peer pressure, basically. It's a very strong force, and it can be used as when you want to nudge people. In Texas, they had a huge problem with highway littering, where people were just throwing stuff out of their cars, and nothing they did could really combat that problem. So what they did was they came up with this slogan, "Don't mess with Texas." And they had a really huge media campaign. Athletes, celebrities made a lot of ads, TV ads, that pushed the notion that Texans don't throw away stuff on the highway. And they projected this image of what a Texan is. And we take pride in our highways. We don't throw trash on them. And it was a huge success. I think they evaluated that it took 5 or 10 years, and then highway littering had dropped by 79%. So by projecting this image of what a Texan should be, they really nudged all of these people to make the right choice. And for me, when I work a lot as a tester or a quality professional, I always, when a developer looks at a pull review, they usually only look at the code and determine, oh, this should be a tab or this should be a space. But what the behavior I like to push is that they also test it. They build it, download it, run a homepage. And by always asking this question at stand-ups, oh, did you test this PR? Or yesterday, Jill tested that PR and she found this really interesting stuff. And by projecting, always talking about it and assuming that developers do it, you kind of, you project this image that everybody does it. And if everybody does it, then every specific developer feels they need to do it as well. So that can be a very powerful nudge to use. So, in closing, this theory was based on the concept of humans versus economic humans. But for me as a quality or test professional, I would like to consider team members and quality enhanced team members. So we want team members who make the right choices, who work with quality in mind, who enhance the quality in everything they do. And how do we get there? We utilize nudges. We talked before, it's small pushes in different areas, different ways of doing it. But the concept is that you nudge them so that they change and become quality enhanced team members without even realizing it. So you get a better software development process without anyone noticing, basically. And so that you as a tester, you as a quality professional, you don't always have to be the William Wallace standing at the Battle of Stirling or King Leonidas with his 300 Spartans. You can be this faceless TVA bureaucrat who works quietly and tirelessly, keeping the flow of history going and the flow of quality going. Thank you. That was me. Questions?
It's about the choices. Is there really a right choice, or is it only good choice or bad choice?
I know it's problematic to be talking about as good choices or bad choices, but what it is more that you use the nudges to get people to do the choices you want. So good. I mean, good in this concept is better quality in your process. But I mean, it can be used for evil as well. Yes.
So a question. So the first definition that you had was about nudging people and to alter their behavior in predictable ways.
Yes.
So for example, when I onboard new developers,
Yes.
I very much would like to have that occur.
Yeah.
However, most of the people that I bring in are super smart.
Yep.
And they don't like to be too fixed in their behavior.
No.
They like to explore, they like to improve stuff.
Yep.
Is there a tension do you identify between nudging people to behave predictably and still allowing for freedom to operate, to discover new ways of, say, working?
I mean, I guess it depends on how sure you are of the behavior you want. Like we said, if you feel that there is a good way of doing it, that you should always test your PR on someone else's PR. Then you can nudge it towards it. So I guess you have to make that choice. Do you want to nudge them towards something, or do you want them to explore and do whatever they feel like? I guess is the best answer. So not really an answer because I left it up to you, but yeah. Other thoughts?
I wonder if there are any lists or examples on the internet or somewhere where you keep a long list of nudges that you can perform.
I think actually there was mention of it in the book that they have a website with list of examples, because it was an addendum to it because people had started sending them examples of nudges. So I don't know the address now, but if you search for nudge theory, you should be able to find the website. There are a lot of more examples. There are a lot of more examples in the book as well. It's really interesting. Or the first third of it is interesting, and then it's just a list of different economical things like school vouchers that the authors think should be used. So if you read the book, you can stop after about a third. Is my suggestion. But yes, there are a list of other nudges.
I have a question about the Lego example you had.
Yes.
So was it one Lego piece per kind of time box thing, or was it and was it then one time box per test, for development, or something else? Or
Yeah. The way we did it then, which wasn't perfect, was that it was 2-week sprints, and we had like one pip. I mean, a square is 4 pips, Lego piece. So each was like a day, I think, and then we determined how many days you were working that sprint. So you got a set number based on the time you had to work that sprint. You got that as a tester, for instance, and then the developer got that as a tester. So we correlated with time, which isn't always the best. No. Ooh.
So when should you proceed from gentle nudges towards a certain behavior to brute enforcement? Do you have an example?
When you get enough power, I guess. No. I mean, there's no set. It's not like when 10 something, but I mean, I think it also depends on personality, right? What type of person you want to be when you work. I much prefer nudges rather than brute force, enforcing people to do stuff. And also another aspect that I didn't bring up, I've noticed that if you nudge a person or you change their behavior without them really noticing, it tends to stick more. It tends to become part of how they work, rather than if you have a rule or you force people to work a certain way, then as soon as they can, they will stop doing it. So I would say never brute force.
I was wondering about the nudge about default choices.
Mm.
I personally find that one the most sort of like something that you can really easily do. Like you can
Yeah.
just go and change the defaults
Yeah.
tomorrow.
Yeah.
But it's more fun about talking about bad ones.
Yeah.
Do you have a list of bad defaults? And then we can just avoid those. Or funniest, or you know.
Funny defaults. I mean, it's always if we take this example, for instance, a bad default is to have no default, to just have a blank page, because that always at least for bug reporting, if you have a blank page, then you tend to get really bad bugs. And on the other end of the scale is to have a lot of you have to fill in a lot of stuff, a lot of mandatory choices. Set defaults can also be very bad. But other than that, I can't really think of a bad default. I'll get back to you. One fix. Oh no, I have a bad default, which is, I don't know if you had this in mind, David, because it was something you warned me against when we were working together, where we had a thing where if you wanted to add a fix to a release, you had to go through like a bug report. You had to answer a couple of questions, and one of the questions was, how big of a risk is this that it will destroy something else? And I wanted to have the choice, or the default choice of, there's no risk, because my reasoning was that no one is stupid enough to say there's no risk, because there's no risk. And I think everybody chose there is no risk. So that was a bad default. But yeah. Do you think this is a valid theory about nudges, that it can help, that you can push someone out to make good choices, or the right choice? Yeah. Yeah.
How do you measure it?
That is
Metric.
hard.
Yeah.
Metrics are always really, really hard. I would say that it is, how do you measure quality is also a very hard question. a lot of the examples that the authors bring up are specific ones, like the don't mess with Texas, littering dropped. But in our field, it's very hard. I guess there are ways of measuring it, like where, for instance, this when default is it is a blocker. You could measure how much time did we spend on bugs before, and how much time do we spend on bugs afterwards. That is one way of measuring it, but it is always hard to measure it.
Yeah, because I think in your examples you provided a lot of technical nudges. So from a system saying that pull request, for example. Do you see it as preferable when the nudge come from a system or a technical solution rather than from me as a person saying it to you in person?
I think it's easier to keep up the nudges if it's technical than for me as a person to always remember to say something at a stand-up.
And I think the message, maybe you as a person who receives the message maybe might not be offended by it if it comes from a system, because the system is designed that way.
Yeah.
To prevent errors or prevent lack of information and things like that.
Yeah, that's true. Because then it's like you said, it's impersonal. It's not directed as you as a person, but it's that's true.
I actually just have to take a part on the first example with the lottery ticket.
Yeah.
Because in my mind, that's a societal nudging part as well. In just having that when you're a bit unhappy, you can always buy a lottery ticket and actually hope for something better.
Yeah.
So, and that's also a part where you can't measure how many people have skipped like getting a divorce from your wife because you have actually been able to buy a lottery ticket.
Oh, that's
so
true.
I understand the hardship of measuring this stuff.
Yeah. It is. I mean, in anything, I'm so very much not an expert, but everything I've read about socio-economic theories is that it's very hard to measure. It's. I mean, you can have a theory, but you don't know if it's good or not. Kind of. Yeah.
So do you tell people that you're nudging them, or do you keep it secret?
Usually keep it a secret, or I mean, they know certain things. They can tell. They notice that blockers are always part of it. But yeah, my experience is that it's better to keep it on the down low for it to be effective. Because if you tell them, then it becomes more of a rule, more of a commandment, what they should do.
The Texas one, it's a powerful statement. How can you make it as the statement as powerful in the work, if you say?
Yeah.
Because it's the Texas one is quite, how can you say? It's quite sensible and it gives them
And
a
it's
sort of
concise
pride.
and
Yes, exactly.
yeah,
So
exactly.
how can we do it in work to make it powerful?
It's a very good question. I'm not an ad man, but I agree. It's these kinds of slogans are very good to use if you can come up with something very concise. But I haven't really heard any such kind of slogan that works, really. Yeah. Well, I think the best way to implement it is to get as many people involved as you can. To start with, you have to sell the idea that everybody thinks this way. In order for it to keep having efficiency, then you have to make sure that a lot of people think this way, because then it becomes this peer pressure that you're trying to build. Yeah, I think so. In order for it to keep having an effect. Yeah. One last one, I think, and then we have
Cool. So I want to follow up on your questions, whether nudges are secret or not.
Yeah.
So how do you plan and iterate on nudges? In your case, did you have a separate, I don't know, nudge committee, which met like once a month or a week or?
No, I mean, like I said, this a lot of these nudges we did before I came across the notion of nudges. It was more a case of there is a problem here, or oh, I wish developers wouldn't do this. How can I, or how can we change it? And then I discovered the theory behind it, that it's better to do it that way than to have commandments. Kind of. But I mean, a nudge council does sound good. Secret council. All right, thank you. I think it's pizza, right?